The courtroom was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I sat there in my Sunday best, a navy blue dress I'd bought from the thrift store on Jefferson Avenue, while my own children stood on the other side of that wooden rail, swearing under oath that I'd lost my mind. "Your Honor," Devin said, his voice dripping with fake concern, "our mother has shown clear signs of dementia. She can't manage her own affairs anymore, let alone $10 million. I looked at my son, my firstborn, the baby I'd nursed through colic and walked through his first steps, and I didn't recognize him anymore. The greed had changed his face into something ugly and twisted. My daughter Keisha nodded along like one of those bobblehead dolls. "She's vulnerable, Your Honor. We're just trying to protect her from people who might take advantage." The lawyer they'd hired, some slick-talking man in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly Social Security check, smiled like he'd already won. "We have witnesses who will testify that Mrs. Ruth Holloway has exhibited concerning behavior. Talking to herself, forgetting important dates, making irrational decisions." That's when I stood up. My own lawyer, a sharp young sister named Simone Crawford, who I'd hired just 3 days ago, touched my arm gently. But I needed to speak. "Permission to address the court, Your Honor?" The judge, a tired-looking black woman who'd probably seen every kind of family mess there was, nodded. "I'd like to say something before this goes any further." My voice didn't shake, even though my hands did. "I know exactly what's happening here, and I am not crazy. I am not incompetent. And I am not going to let my children steal what my Uncle Jerome worked his whole life to build." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Holloway, you'll have your chance to present your case. With all due respect, Your Honor, I need to say this now." I turned to face Devin and Keisha. "Y'all think I'm some confused old woman who don't know what's going on? I know exactly what you're doing. I've known for years what kind of people you really are. And now, with Uncle Jerome's money, you finally showed your whole hand." Devin's lawyer jumped up. "Your Honor, this outburst only proves—" "Sit down," the judge said sharply. Then to me, "Mrs. Holloway, continue, but keep it brief." "I will prove that I am of sound mind. I will prove that my children are the ones who can't be trusted. And when this is over, y'all are going to wish you'd just let me be." I sat back down, my heart pounding like a drum. The judge looked at both sides. "We'll reconvene in 2 weeks. Both parties will have time to prepare their cases. Court adjourned." As they led me out, Devin grabbed my arm. "Mama, you're making a mistake fighting us on this." I pulled away from him. "The only mistake I made was raising you to think family means nothing and money means everything." Before we continue, please tell us where you're watching from so we know how far our stories reach, and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Let me take you back to where this all started, 3 months before that courtroom. I was 72 years old, living in the same small house on Ashland Street that I'd bought with my late husband Thomas back in 1982. He'd been gone 15 years, God rest his soul, and I'd been making do on Social Security and the little bit I'd saved from my years working as a school cafeteria manager. My life was simple. I went to Mount Zion Baptist Church every Sunday, played dominoes with my friends at the senior center on Tuesdays, and watched my stories on TV. I had my little garden in the back where I grew tomatoes and collard greens. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't bothering nobody either. My relationship with my children had been strained for years. Devin was 45, working in sales, always had some new scheme to get rich quick. He'd call me maybe twice a year, usually around Christmas and his birthday, always with his hand out. "Mama, I just need a little something to tide me over." I'd give him what I could, even when I couldn't afford it. Keisha was 42, married to a man named Vernon who I never trusted. She'd had 3 kids, my grandbabies Aaliyah, Jordan, and Zion, but I barely got to see them. Every time I'd invite them over, Keisha had an excuse. "We're so busy, Mama, maybe next month." Next month never came. They both lived in the suburbs now, in big houses with their perfect lawns, and they acted like they were embarrassed of where they came from. Like they were embarrassed of me. But Uncle Jerome? He'd always been different. He was my mother's younger brother, and growing up, we'd been close. He was the one who'd slip me money for school supplies when Mama couldn't afford them. He was the one who came to my high school graduation when my own father was too drunk to show up. But somewhere along the way, we'd drifted apart. He'd moved to Atlanta in the 70s to start a construction business, and we'd lost touch. I'd heard through family gossip that he'd done well for himself, but we hadn't spoken in almost 30 years. I'd sent him a Christmas card every year, but he'd never responded. I figured he'd forgotten about me, moved on to his successful life, and left his Chicago roots behind. Then one Tuesday in July, I got a knock on my door. It was a young black man in a suit, carrying a leather briefcase. "Mrs. Ruth Holloway?" "That's me," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. I'd been making peach cobbler. "My name is Attorney Malcolm Green. I represent the estate of Jerome Washington. May I come in?" My heart stopped. "Jerome? Is he—" "I'm sorry to inform you that Mr. Washington passed away 2 weeks ago. Heart attack. It was sudden." I let him in, my hands shaking as I poured us both some sweet tea. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed my babies, where Thomas and I had paid bills and argued and made up, where I'd spent countless hours alone after he died. "I'm very sorry for your loss, Mrs. Holloway. I understand you and Mr. Washington were close at one time." "A long time ago," I whispered. "I can't believe he's gone. I wish we'd reconnected." Attorney Green opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. "Mrs. Holloway, Mr. Washington never forgot about you. In fact, you were the only family member he included in his will." I looked up at him, confused. "I don't understand." "Your uncle was a very successful businessman. His construction company was one of the largest black-owned firms in Georgia. He had real estate investments, stocks, bonds. His estate is valued at approximately $10 million. The room started spinning. 10 million? And he left it all to you. Every single penny. I thought I was going to faint. But why? Why me? We hadn't talked in decades. Attorney Green smiled. "He left you a letter. He wanted you to read it after his passing." He handed me an envelope, yellowed with age, with my name written in Uncle Jerome's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Dear Ruthie, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I never reached out all these years. Truth is, I was ashamed. Ashamed that I left Chicago and never looked back. Ashamed that I built a fortune while you struggled. Ashamed that I let pride keep me from the one person who was always kind to me. I never married, never had kids, built an empire, but died alone. That's not success, Ruthie. That's failure. You were always the good one in our family, the one who helped others even when you had nothing. I remember how you'd share your lunch at school with kids who couldn't afford one, how you'd visit old Mrs. Patterson next door when no one else would, how you raised your kids alone after Thomas died and never complained. I kept track of you over the years. I know you think I forgot, but I didn't. I sent anonymous money orders when I heard you were struggling. I paid off your mortgage 5 years ago through a third party. I wanted to help without interfering. Now I'm leaving you everything because you're the only one who deserves it. You know what real wealth is. It's love, kindness, family. Things I forgot while chasing dollars. Don't let the vultures get it, and don't let anyone tell you what to do with it. This is your blessing, earned by being a good person your whole life. Love always, Jerome." I cried right there at my kitchen table, tears falling onto that letter. Uncle Jerome had been watching over me all these years. The mysterious mortgage payoff that I'd thought was a bank error. That was him. The money orders that came when I needed them most. That was him. "Mrs. Holloway?" Attorney Green said gently. "Are you all right?" "He paid off my house," I whispered. 5 years ago, suddenly my mortgage was paid and I thought it was a miracle. That was Jerome? Yes, ma'am. He wanted to help. But he knew you'd refuse if you knew it was from him. He understood your pride. I wiped my eyes. What do I need to do? We'll need to go through probate, but it should be straightforward. You're the sole heir. The will is ironclad. Your uncle made sure of that. That night, I called Devin and Keisha to tell them about Jerome's death. I thought they should know their great-uncle had passed. Who's Uncle Jerome? Devin asked, sounding distracted. I could hear a basketball game on his TV. Mama's uncle, Grandma Dorothy's brother. Oh, okay, that's sad, I guess. Listen, Mama, I'm in the middle of something. He left me everything in his will, I said quietly. The TV went silent. What do you mean, everything? His estate. It's a lot of money, baby. How much is a lot? I hesitated. $10 million? The line went dead silent for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then, Mama, say that again? Jerome left me $10 million. Oh my God. Mama, that's incredible. Wow. Okay, we need to talk about this. When can I come over? Tomorrow's fine. I'm coming over tonight. Stay right there. Don't talk to anyone else about this, okay? We need to figure this out as a family. He showed up 30 minutes later, with Keisha right behind him. They'd both called each other the second I hung up. They came into my house with big smiles and hugs, the first real affection they'd shown me in years. It should have made me happy, but something about it felt wrong. Like when a cat brings you a dead mouse and expects praise. Mama, this is amazing, Keisha said, sitting close to me on the couch. $10 million. Do you realize what this means? It means Uncle Jerome was a generous man, I said carefully. It means you're set for life, Devin said. It means all of us are set. Mama, you could buy a new house, a new car. You could travel. You could help us with... Now hold on, I said. This just happened today. I'm still processing. Of course, Keisha said, patting my hand. But you know Vernon and I have been struggling with the mortgage, and Aaliyah needs braces, and Jordan wants to go to that private school. And Mama, I've got this business opportunity. Devin jumped in. It's a sure thing. If I could just get some startup capital. I stood up. Both of y'all need to leave. They looked shocked. Mama, what? Keisha said. I said leave. Uncle Jerome just died, and all you can talk about is his money? All you can think about is what you're going to get? We're just trying to help you plan, Devin said. You're not used to handling this much money. You need guidance. You need family. Where was family when Thomas died and I was working 2 jobs to keep this house? Where was family when I had surgery last year and sat in that hospital room alone? Where was family every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday dinner I cooked that neither of you showed up for? Keisha's face changed. The fake sweetness disappeared. That's not fair, Mama. We've been busy. We have our own lives. And now you have time for me because I have money. You're being paranoid, Devin said. We're your children. We love you. We're just excited for you. Get out, I said again. Both of you. Right now. They left, but not before Devin turned at the door and said, You're going to need us, Mama. $10 million is a lot of responsibility. You can't handle this alone. After they left, I sat in the darkness of my living room and cried. Not tears of joy about the money, but tears of grief for the family I thought I had but never did. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Devin and Keisha called every day, sometimes multiple times. They'd show up unannounced. They brought Vernon and Devin's wife Shanice with them, all talking about investments and trusts and how I needed to protect my assets. You should set up college funds for the grandkids, Vernon said, his eyes gleaming. You should pay off our houses, Shanice suggested. Then we'd have more time to spend with you. They'd even brought their pastor, not my pastor from Mount Zion, but their fancy suburban megachurch pastor, to talk to me about stewardship and blessing your family. I said no to everything. The money was still in probate, but even if it wasn't, I wasn't ready to make any decisions. I wanted to grieve Uncle Jerome. I wanted to think about what he'd wanted for me. That's when things turned ugly. Attorney Green called me one morning, his voice tight with anger. "Mrs. Holloway, I just received notice that your children have filed a petition for guardianship. They're claiming you're mentally incompetent and unable to manage your affairs." My blood ran cold. "They're doing what?" "They've filed with the court to have you declared incapacitated. If they succeed, they'll control your finances, your medical decisions, everything, including the inheritance." I couldn't breathe. My own children were trying to take away my freedom, my dignity, my life, all for money that wasn't even theirs. "What do I do?" I whispered. "You fight," Attorney Green said, "and I know just the lawyer to help you." That's how I met Simone Crawford. She came to my house the next day, a young black woman with natural hair styled in locks, wearing a sharp pantsuit and carrying confidence like a shield. "Mrs. Holloway," she said, shaking my hand firmly, "Malcolm told me about your situation. I specialize in elder law and family disputes. I've seen this before. Family members trying to control an inheritance by claiming incompetence. It's disgusting, and we're going to stop it." "But what if they have witnesses? What if people believe them?" Simone smiled. "Mrs. Holloway, do you remember what you did yesterday?" "I went to church. Had lunch at Helen's house after service. We played bid whist until 4 o'clock. Then I came home, watered my garden, and watched the news. And the day before? Tuesday, I went to the senior center, beat everybody at dominoes like always, picked up my prescriptions at the pharmacy, made dinner, called my friend Wanda to check on her hip." "And you manage your own bills? Your own medical appointments?" "Of course I do. I've been doing it for 15 years since Thomas died." "Then you're not incompetent. You're a functioning, independent adult. Your children are lying, and we're going to prove it." Over the next 2 weeks, Simone built my case. She got statements from my doctors, from my pastor Reverend James at Mount Zion, from my friends at the senior center. She got my bank records showing I'd been managing my finances perfectly for decades. She even got security footage from the pharmacy showing me having normal, coherent conversations with the pharmacist. "They're going to bring witnesses," Simone warned me. "Friends of theirs who'll lie and say they've seen you confused or disoriented. They're going to paint a picture of a helpless old woman who needs protection." "I'm not helpless," I said firmly. "I know that. And we're going to make sure the judge knows that too. But Ruth, I need to ask you something. Are you prepared for what comes next? This isn't just a legal battle. This is going to destroy whatever relationship you have left with your children." I thought about Devin as a little boy, how he'd climb into my lap and ask me to read him stories. I thought about Keisha at 6 years old, dancing in the living room to Motown records. I thought about all the hopes I'd had for them, all the dreams I'd dreamed. Then I thought about them standing in that courtroom, lying under oath, trying to take away my freedom. "I don't have a relationship with them anymore," I said quietly. "I'm not sure I ever did. They don't love me. They love what they think they can get from me." "Then let's show them who they're dealing with," Simone said. "Because Mrs. Ruth Holloway, you are not going down without a fight." That's how I ended up in that courtroom, watching my children try to have me declared incompetent. And that's when I decided enough was enough. Because here's the thing they didn't know. When Uncle Jerome's lawyer, Malcolm Green, contacted me, he didn't just tell me about the money. He told me Uncle Jerome had kept detailed records of everything: bank statements, business records, tax returns going back 40 years. And hidden in those records was something very interesting about my children's finances. Simone had found it while preparing my case, a pattern of suspicious loans, wire transfers, and business deals that didn't add up. Money moving in ways that looked a whole lot like fraud. My children thought they were so smart, trying to declare me incompetent so they could control the inheritance. But what they didn't realize was that in bringing me to court, They'd opened themselves up to scrutiny, too. And I was about to turn their whole world upside down. As I walked out of the courthouse that day, with 2 weeks until the next hearing, I made myself a promise. I wasn't just going to prove I was competent. I was going to prove that my children were the ones who couldn't be trusted. Uncle Jerome had given me more than money. He'd given me power, and I was going to use every bit of it to protect myself and expose the truth. 2 weeks. That's all I had to prepare for the fight of my life. And Lord help me, I was going to win. Those 2 weeks before the hearing were the longest of my life. But I wasn't sitting around feeling sorry for myself. Simone had me busier than a one-armed paper hanger, as my mama used to say. "We're going to do more than just defend you," Simone said during one of our meetings at her office. "We're going to go on the offense. Your children made a mistake coming after you legally. Now everything they've done is fair game." She spread papers across her desk. Bank statements, tax returns, business records. "Look at this. 3 years ago, Devin took out a loan for $200,000 for a business venture. The business never existed. The money disappeared into his personal accounts. Then he claimed it as a loss on his taxes." "That's illegal, isn't it?" I asked. "Very. And here's Keisha and Vernon. They've been claiming rental income from properties they don't actually own. They created fake LLCs, fake tenants, fake everything. They've been committing tax fraud for at least 5 years. My stomach turned. My babies are criminals? Simone's face softened. "I'm sorry, Ruth. I know this is hard, but you need to know what kind of people you're dealing with. How did you find all this?" "Malcolm Green didn't just handle your uncle's estate. He was also his friend and his accountant. Jerome had mentioned your children to him over the years. When Malcolm heard they were trying to have you declared incompetent, he started digging. He found connections between their financial activities and some business dealings your uncle had investigated. He handed everything over to me." I sat back in my chair, feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. "What are you going to do with this information?" "That's up to you. We can use it to defend you in court. Show that they have motivation to lie about your competence because they want to control the money. Or," she paused, "we can report them to the authorities. The IRS, the FBI, if needed. They could face criminal charges." "They're still my children," I whispered. "I know, but Ruth, they're trying to take away your freedom. They're willing to have you locked in a guardianship where you can't make any decisions about your own life." "That's not love. That's abuse." I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Devin and Keisha as babies. Devin with his gap-toothed smile. Keisha with her pigtails. Where had I gone wrong? How had they turned into people who could do this to me? Around midnight, I got down on my knees beside my bed and prayed. I prayed for wisdom. I prayed for strength. I prayed for my grandbabies, who I knew were watching all this happen. That's when I heard a knock at my door. At midnight. My heart jumped. Who would be here this late? I looked through the peephole and saw Aaliyah, my eldest grandchild. She was 16 now, tall and beautiful with her hair in braids, and she was crying. I opened the door immediately. "Baby, what's wrong? What are you doing here so late?" She fell into my arms. "Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what they're doing to you." I pulled her inside, locked the door, and held her while she cried. When she finally calmed down, I made her some hot chocolate, the same way I used to when she was little, with extra marshmallows. "Tell me what's going on," I said gently. "I heard them talking," Aaliyah said, her voice shaking. "Mom and Dad and Uncle Devin and Aunt Shanice. They were all at our house planning what they're going to say in court. They were laughing, Grandma, laughing about how they're going to make you look crazy so they can control the money." My heart broke, but I wasn't surprised. "I know, baby." "They said they're going to say you forget things, that you talk to yourself, that you can't manage your bills. They're making it all up. I told them it was wrong, and Mom said I didn't understand. That this was family business. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But your family too, Grandma. You're the best family we have. I held her hand. Does your mama know you're here? No. I snuck out. Grandma, I'll testify for you. I'll tell the judge the truth. I'll tell them you're not crazy, that you're the smartest, strongest person I know. Oh, baby, I said, crying now too. You're so brave, but I can't let you do that. I can't put you in the middle of this. I'm already in the middle. They're using us grandkids as an excuse. They keep saying they need the money for our future, for our college funds. But that's a lie. Uncle Devin's been drinking again, and he gambles. Mom and Dad just bought a new boat they can't afford. None of this is about us. What about Jordan and Zion? How are they doing? Aaliyah wiped her eyes. They're younger, so they don't really understand. But they miss you. They ask about you all the time. Remember how you used to make us Sunday dinner? How we'd all come over and you'd have fried chicken and macaroni and greens? They talk about that all the time. I miss y'all too, I said. More than you know. We talked until 2 a.m. Then I drove her home, making sure she got back inside safely without her parents knowing she'd left. Before she got out of the car, she hugged me tight. Grandma, promise me you'll fight. Don't let them win. I promise, baby. I promise. The next morning I called Simone and told her about Aaliyah's visit. That poor child is caught in the middle of this mess. Ruth, this actually helps us. If Aaliyah is willing to testify, no, absolutely not. I won't make her choose between me and her parents. Then we do this without her. But her visit tells us everything we need to know. Your children are coordinating their testimony. They're planning to lie, which means we hit them hard with the truth. The day of the hearing arrived. I put on my best Sunday dress, the emerald green one I'd bought for Easter, and my pearl earrings that Thomas had given me for our 20th anniversary. I looked at myself in the mirror and said out loud, Ruth Holloway, you got this. You didn't survive 72 years of life to let your own children destroy you now. The courtroom was packed. My children sat on one side with their lawyers and their witnesses, friends from their church, neighbors from their subdivision, all ready to lie for them. On my side, I had Simone, Malcolm Green, and something beautiful that made my heart swell. Half of Mount Zion Baptist Church had shown up to support me. Reverend James was there in his good suit, Sister Helen and Sister Wanda from my domino group, Brother Marcus who ran the senior center, even young folks from the church who'd grown up eating my Sunday dinners after service. The whole left side of that courtroom was filled with black folks who knew me, who loved me, who weren't about to let me go down without a fight. Devin looked shocked when he saw them all. Keisha's face went pale. The judge, Judge Patricia Morrison, called the courtroom to order. We're here today regarding a petition for guardianship filed by Devin Holloway and Keisha Thompson against their mother, Ruth Holloway. The petitioners claim Mrs. Holloway is mentally incompetent and unable to manage her affairs. We'll hear from both sides. Devin's lawyer went first. He called witness after witness. A neighbor who claimed she'd seen me wandering confused in my yard. A friend of Keisha's who said I'd forgotten her name at a gathering. Devin himself, saying he'd noticed my mental decline over the past year. They painted a picture of a confused, frail old woman who couldn't remember basic things and needed constant supervision. It was all lies, but they told them so smoothly, so convincingly. Then it was our turn. Simone stood up, and I swear that young woman commanded that courtroom like a general commanding troops. Your Honor, we will prove beyond any doubt that Mrs. Ruth Holloway is not only competent, but is being targeted by her own children in a scheme to steal her inheritance. She called Reverend James first. He testified about how I volunteered at the church food pantry, how I kept the books for the senior ministry, how I was sharp as a tack and more organized than people half my age. Sister Helen testified about our domino games, how I never forgot a play, how I managed my medications perfectly, how I was the one who drove her to doctor's appointments when she needed help. My doctor testified that my cognitive function tests were perfect, that I had no signs of dementia or confusion, that I was healthier mentally than most people my age. The pharmacist testified about our conversations, how I always knew exactly what medications I was taking and why. But the real moment came when Simone called Malcolm Green to the stand. "Mr. Green, you're the executor of Jerome Washington's estate, correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you had occasion to investigate the financial history of Devin Holloway and Keisha Thompson?" Devin's lawyer jumped up. "Objection! Relevance!" "Your Honor," Simone said calmly, "it's extremely relevant. The petitioners claim they're trying to protect their mother. I'm going to show that they're actually trying to protect themselves from investigation into their own criminal activities." The judge leaned forward. "I'll allow it. But make your point quickly, counselor." Malcolm Green laid it all out. The fake businesses, the fraudulent loans, the tax evasion, the money laundering, every dirty detail of what Devin and Keisha had been doing for years. The courtroom erupted. People were gasping. The folks from Mount Zion were shaking their heads. Devin and Keisha looked like they wanted to disappear into the floor. "Your Honor," Simone continued, "these two individuals have been committing fraud for years. They're not concerned about their mother's well-being. They're concerned that with $10 million and access to good lawyers and accountants, their mother might discover their crimes. They're trying to have her declared incompetent so they can control the money and bury the evidence." "This is ridiculous," Devin shouted. "This is a lie." "Mr. Holloway, you will sit down and be quiet," Judge Morrison said sharply. "Counselor, I hope you have evidence of these claims." "I do, Your Honor. Extensive evidence. And I've already forwarded copies to the IRS and the FBI. The courtroom went silent. You could have heard a mouse sneeze. Keisha started crying. Not real tears, manipulative tears. The kind she'd used since she was a little girl to get out of trouble. "Mama, please, tell them this isn't true. Tell them to stop." I stood up. "Your Honor, may I speak?" "Please, Mrs. Holloway." I looked at my children, really looked at them, maybe for the first time in years. Everything Attorney Crawford said is true. I didn't know about it until she investigated, but now I do. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that I raised children who would lie and cheat and steal. I'm ashamed that they'd try to take away my freedom just to cover up their crimes. But most of all, I'm ashamed that they made me believe for so many years that I was the problem, that I wasn't good enough, that I was just a burden. My voice got stronger. "But I'm not a burden. I'm a woman who worked 2 jobs to put you through school. I'm a woman who sacrificed everything so you could have better lives. I'm a woman who survived poverty and racism and widowhood and kept going. I am not incompetent. I am not crazy. And I am not going to let you do this to me." The courtroom erupted in applause. The Mount Zion folks were standing, clapping, saying "Amen" and "Tell it." Judge Morrison banged her gavel, but she was smiling. "Order! Order in the court." When everyone settled down, she looked at Devin and Keisha. "I've seen a lot in my years on this bench, but this might be the most shameful case I've ever heard. Not only is this petition denied, but I'm referring this matter to the proper authorities for criminal investigation." She turned to me. "Mrs. Holloway, you are clearly competent. You are clearly being targeted by individuals who have no regard for your well-being. I'm sorry you had to go through this, but I hope you know that justice has been served today." "Thank you, Your Honor," I said, crying real tears now, tears of relief and victory. As we left the courtroom, Devin grabbed my arm one last time. "Mama, you're really going to let them arrest us? We're your children." I pulled away from him. "You stopped being my children the day you decided money was more important than family. You made your choices. Now you live with them." Keisha tried too. "Mama, please. Think about the kids. Aaliyah, Jordan, Zion, they need their parents. Those babies need parents who teach them right from wrong, parents who show them that family means something. You didn't do that, so now they're going to learn a hard lesson about consequences. I walked away from them and didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, my church family surrounded me with hugs and prayers. Reverend James said, "Sister Ruth, we're so proud of you. You stood up for yourself with dignity and grace." "I couldn't have done it without all of you," I said. "Thank you for being here. Thank you for being my real family." Over the next few months, things moved fast. Devin and Keisha were arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and tax evasion. They eventually took plea deals. Devin got 3 years, Keisha got 2 because she cooperated more. Their fancy suburban houses got seized. Their perfect lives fell apart. I should have felt happy about it, but mostly I just felt sad. Sad for what could have been. Sad for my grandbabies. Sad for the family we never really were. But here's what I did with Uncle Jerome's money. First, I set up irrevocable trust funds for Aaliyah, Jordan, and Zion. They'd get access when they turned 25, but only for education, starting a business, or buying a home. I made sure their parents couldn't touch a penny of it. Second, I paid off the mortgages of 5 families at Mount Zion who were struggling, folks who'd been there for me when I needed them. Third, I funded a scholarship program at my old high school for kids who wanted to go to college but couldn't afford it. Fourth, I bought a bigger house, nothing too fancy, still in the old neighborhood, with enough room for my grandbabies to visit. Because Aaliyah was 18 now, and she'd decided to live with me while she went to community college. Jordan and Zion came over every weekend. Fifth, I hired Simone Crawford as my personal attorney and Malcolm Green as my financial advisor. Together, we set up a foundation in Uncle Jerome's name to help Black-owned businesses get started. And finally, I kept enough for myself to live comfortably, to travel a little, to enjoy the time I had left without worrying about money. 1 year after the trial, I was sitting on my new porch with Aaliyah, watching Jordan and Zion play in the yard. They were laughing, being kids, not worrying about adult problems. "Grandma," Aaliyah said, "do you think you'll ever forgive Mom and Uncle Devin?" I thought about it. "Baby, forgiveness isn't about them. It's about me not carrying anger in my heart. So, yes, I forgive them. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean letting them back in to hurt me again. It means I'm at peace with what happened, and I'm moving forward." Do you think they've learned their lesson? I hope so. I pray for them every night. I pray they use their time in prison to become better people. But that's on them, not me. I can't save people who don't want to be saved. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm glad I have you, Grandma. You taught me what real strength looks like." That made me cry happy tears, because that's what Uncle Jerome wanted. Not for me to have millions of dollars, but to have the power to protect myself, to help others, to live with dignity. His money gave me that power, but I already had the strength. I'd had it all along. I'd survived racism and poverty and widowhood and heartbreak. I'd raised 2 children alone and kept my faith through everything. I'd been strong my whole life. I just needed someone to remind me of it. Sometimes your family isn't the people you're born to. Sometimes your family is the people who show up for you when you need them most. My church family, Simone, Malcolm, my grandbabies, they were my real family. As for Devin and Keisha, they got out of prison eventually. Devin called me once, asking for money to start over. I said no, but I told him I loved him and I prayed for him. He hung up on me. Haven't heard from him since. Keisha wrote me letters from prison, apologizing over and over. When she got out, she asked if she could see me. I said yes, but at my lawyer's office with Simone present. We talked for 2 hours. She cried a lot. Said she was ashamed. Said she'd been greedy and stupid, and she'd lost everything that mattered. I told her I forgave her, but trust had to be earned back. She's working on it. She gets to see the kids when I'm there supervising. Maybe one day we'll have a real relationship again. Maybe we won't. I'm at peace either way. The important thing is I'm free. I'm happy. I'm living my life on my terms. And every day I thank God for Uncle Jerome, who saw something in me worth saving, and who gave me the tools to save myself. I'm 73 now. I don't know how many more years I have on this earth. But I know they're going to be good years. Years filled with love and purpose and joy. Years where I wake up every morning grateful for another day. That's what real wealth is. Not the money in the bank, but the peace in your heart. Not the size of your house, but the love of your family, the family you choose, not just the family you're born into. Uncle Jerome understood that in the end. And thanks to him, I understand it too. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.